It's another moon-heavy week with NASA's Moon by 2024 program getting a name, the agency's 2020 budget request getting an update, and 11 companies being selected to study concepts for human-rated lunar landers. Without further ado, let's get right into this week's Space Bulletin for May 18th, 2019. In a late afternoon tweet May 13th, President Donald Trump announced NASA's amended budget request for the Moon by 2024 challenge set by Vice President Mike Pence in March. While a lot of details are still unclear, NASA officials said the agency needs at least $1.6 billion for fiscal year 2020, on top of the initial $21 billion that was already requested by the administration for the space agency in general. The updated request includes about $1 billion to begin supporting the development of commercial human lander systems, which could include 3 stages: a transfer vehicle, a descent vehicle, and an ascent vehicle. Additionally, the Lunar Gateway, which the agency says is key to achieving the 2024 goal, would be scaled back and have its funding reduced by $321 million to about $500 million. Finally, the long-delayed Space Launch System and Orion programs, which would get astronauts to cislunar space, would see an additional $651 million on top of the initially requested $3.04 billion. At the same time, NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine announced a name to the program: Artemis, which in Greek mythology is the goddess of the moon and the twin sister of the god Apollo. For now, it looks like getting NASA's amended budget request through Congress may be an uphill battle. While not disclosed in the initial announcement, the Washington Post confirmed the additional money for NASA would come from a roughly $9 billion surplus in the federal Pell Grant program, which helps low-income students with college funding. Although officials have said taking from the surplus would not affect those applying for aid, this isn't sitting well with certain members of the House Appropriations Committee. Representative Eddie Bernice Johnson, a Democrat from Texas, said in a May 15 statement that while she would reserve judgment on the overall program until a more concrete budget is provided, she doesn't believe NASA's exploration program should be funded through the Pell Grant program, as getting to the moon will, quote, take more scientists and engineers, not fewer, unquote. Additionally, on May 16th, the House Appropriations Committee released a spending bill that would increase NASA's budget by $1.3 billion over the president's initial request. However, much of that would go toward an increased science budget, with the Lunar Gateway development and lunar lander research funding slashed by $618 million, essentially ignoring the president's request. There is still a long process before NASA gets a final FY 2020 budget, including passage through the full House of Representatives as well as the Senate before getting the president's signature. Back at NASA, the agency is pressing forward where it can, including the announcement of 11 companies to conduct studies and produce prototype human lander systems. The goal is to help jumpstart the process of designing and developing a system to land astronauts at the lunar South Pole by 2024, with the goal of establishing sustainable missions by 2028. Through NASA's Next Space Technologies for Exploration Partnerships, or NextStep, contracts, the companies are expected to study or develop prototypes over the next 6 months in order to reduce schedule risk for the development of transfer, descent, and ascent vehicles. Refueling options for these hardware elements are also being studied. In total, $45.5 million is being split by the 11 companies, with each required to contribute at least 20% of the total cost in order to help develop a lunar economy in much the same way the commercial cargo and crew programs have done for low Earth orbit. The companies awarded include Aerojet Rocketdyne, Blue Origin, Boeing, Dynetics, Lockheed Martin, Mast and Space Systems, Northrop Grumman, Orbit Beyond, Sierra Nevada Corporation, SpaceX, and SSL. Further lunar lander development hinges on Congress passing a budget with funding for the Artemis program. When NASA astronauts return to the lunar surface for the first time since 1972, one thing likely to be studied further is the recent analysis that the moon is shrinking, causing its crust to shrivel like a grape. This contraction may be causing moonquakes, as evidenced by faults around the surface that may still be active. While 5 of the 6 Apollo landings between 1969 and 1972 saw astronauts place seismometers on the surface, they only operated until 1977 and recorded 28 shallow moonquakes. Recent analysis via updated algorithms and imagery from NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter showed 8 of those occurred within 30 kilometers of a fault, which NASA said is close enough to tentatively attribute them with the quakes. In non-moon news, while SpaceX's Starlink mission was delayed until at least next week, Spaceflight Insider photographers were on site. Here's our Michael Howard and Jim Siegel to give you a little behind the scenes of what it takes to capture these incredible launches.
We have a host of people that work behind the scenes to get the pictures from this pad and the others that are here at Kennedy Space Center, as well as Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. A lot of work goes into these stations, hours of time that go in batteries, testing, make sure the triggers are working.
This is part of the space flight insider portion. We're trying to give you the inside line, not only on the space launches itself, but how it's done, how it's captured by the media. Is that correct, Mike?
Yep, that's how it is.
Thanks, guys. To see the full video, head over to our Patreon page. A contribution of any amount will get you exclusive perks and go a long way in helping us get you closer to the space industry. For now, those are your space bulletins for this week. Be sure to subscribe to Space Flight Insider and hit the bell to be notified for more space-related videos. As always, you can find these and the latest space stories at spaceflightinsider.com. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.